Recently, a new study has found there are hidden buildings and tunnels underneath the prison yard at Alcatraz. For years, Alcatraz was seen as just a prison, inescapable, isolated, and cold. In 2025, a hidden tunnel was uncovered, sealed behind a wall that didn't exist on any blueprint. But this discovery wasn't about the famous 1962 escape. It was something darker, something hidden for over 60 years. What seemed to be an ordinary maintenance corridor concealed a secret that defied everything known about Alcatraz. Beneath decades of dust, workers uncovered a false wall. Its construction didn't match any official plans, military records, or prison layouts. It was an enigma, carefully designed to blend in, invisible to even the most trained eye. Behind it lay a narrow shaft plunging into darkness. The air was stale and unmoving, as if sealed away from time itself. The space bore no signs of human presence, no markings, no disturbances, only a cold void preserved like a tomb. The shaft dropped far deeper than any recorded part of the island. Its reinforced walls contained steel supports stamped with serial numbers predating the prison's existence. This was no utility tunnel. It had been built deliberately, with intent and secrecy, as though whatever lay inside was never meant to surface. Yet no trace of this construction was found in any archive. From Alcatraz's days as a military fort to its era as a maximum security prison, nothing mentioned such a place. No blueprint, no guard account, no prisoner memoir gave the faintest hint of it. It was as if this shaft had been erased from history. Known to most as a former federal penitentiary that once held the nation's most infamous criminals, it has since become a tourist attraction where families pose for photos, guides recount daring escapes, and visitors marvel at its grim history. Yet beneath the weathered cells and crumbling walls, a truth far darker has remained buried. Tourists walking through corridors once patrolled by guards and haunted by men like Al Capone and Machine Gun Kelly have no idea they tread above one of the most closely guarded secrets in American history. On the surface, Alcatraz presents itself as a museum preserved in time. Postcards and t-shirts in the gift shop, children running where inmates once plotted freedom, and audio tours recalling the famed 1962 escape attempt. But beneath its foundation lay something deliberately hidden, locked in concrete and silence for decades. In 2025, during what was supposed to be a routine expansion of the visitor areas, construction crews uncovered something that would upend the accepted narrative of the island. At first, it seemed like a minor infrastructure issue, the sort of problem expected in a structure more than a century old. But when workers pried at the stone, anticipating rusted pipes or outdated wiring, they instead revealed an anomaly. The wall they uncovered didn't match any blueprint or archive plan. Its design was deliberate, its craftsmanship distinct from the prison's utilitarian architecture. Unlike the surrounding masonry, this barrier had been constructed with materials and compounds unavailable to civilian contractors in the 1930s. Later analysis confirmed they were military grade, the kind used only in specialized projects. Behind it lay a passage that had never appeared in records. No guard, warden, or prisoner had mentioned it in interviews, memoirs, or reports. It was as though this section had been deliberately erased from history. The seamless deception required to conceal it suggested it wasn't built by prisoners or ordinary prison labor. Word of the discovery quickly spread, drawing structural engineers, historians, and archaeologists to the site. But as more experts arrived, federal agencies stepped in, tightening control and restricting access. Even the island's administrators were stunned. None had ever heard of this hidden section. When the final stones were pulled away, silence gripped the room. Beyond the wall wasn't a forgotten storage space or abandoned utility corridor. It was the entrance to something entirely different, something unsettling in both its design and secrecy. A rush of stale, icy air seeped out, carrying with it decades of confinement. It was immediately clear this place had been sealed off intentionally, preserved in untouched darkness. And whatever purpose it once served, it had been dangerous enough to remain buried for generations. As the team moved deeper into the twisting corridor, the atmosphere shifted in ways that defied explanation. The air grew colder, heavier, carrying the weight of something deliberately hidden. This was no ordinary passage, and every step made that clearer. The construction was too precise for any known function within a penitentiary. There were no signs of wear, no evidence of use, no hasty repairs that might suggest prisoner involvement. Every section was designed to endure and to conceal. Each turn led further into the earth, away from documented sections of the prison. The walls, once simple stone, became increasingly complex. First came a barrier of perfectly cut granite, fitted with expert precision. Beyond that, thick stone bricks appeared, each marked with numbers in an unknown system. Finally, investigators found a layer of lead-based sealant, its dull sheen catching light unnaturally, as if resisting examination. The deeper the team went, the more unsettling the tunnel became. Reinforcement after reinforcement suggested a purpose beyond function. It seemed created to hide something so thoroughly that no one would ever stumble across it. The engineering was too advanced for prison labor or standard government projects. It bore the hallmarks of military or intelligence design, with access to classified techniques and virtually unlimited resources. At last, the corridor narrowed sharply, leading to a door concealed within the stone. Rusted but formidable, it blended seamlessly with the wall, invisible when shut. Its thickness exceeded that of any prison door, secured by multiple deadbolts, corroded electronic locks, and even a manual combination system, layers of security meant to ensure no unauthorized entry. With heavy tools and painstaking effort, the investigators forced it open. The door gave a groan that reverberated through the tunnel like a warning. What waited beyond was not a forgotten chamber or utility space. It was something that would force historians, officials, and the public alike to reconsider everything they thought they knew about Alcatraz, about the federal prison system, and about the hidden operations buried beneath one of America's most infamous landmarks. And before we continue unfolding this fascinating discovery, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss any future episodes. Don't forget to share it with your friends too. It helps the channel out, and I'm excited to continue bringing you more awesome content. The chamber beyond the door felt frozen in time, as if sealed the moment it was closed. No rats scurried, no dust stirred in the stagnant air. Shelves lined the walls, filled not with prison records or discarded supplies, but with carefully arranged documents. One wall was covered by maps of the San Francisco Bay, hand-drawn with precise detail of currents and tides. Strange symbols marked locations that corresponded to no known landmarks. There were coded messages in multiple languages, requiring cryptographers to decipher. Notations referenced operations and personnel absent from any official record. Diagrams of nautical routes showed submarine approach vectors and classified level knowledge of oceanography. Photographs and floor plans covered another wall, government buildings, sensitive facilities, and personnel files redacted with heavy black ink. The evidence pointed to operations beyond anything tied to prison administration. At the room's center sat primitive radio devices, carefully preserved. Their modifications indicated long-range communication and signal interception, not routine prison use. Charts showed frequencies linked to military and government communications. This was surveillance technology. Sealed boxes contained project files labeled only as Warden's Shadow. The name appeared nowhere in archives. The documents described covert operations that used Alcatraz's isolation and security as cover for intelligence activities. Reel-to-reel tapes revealed encrypted communications in several languages, filled with references to assets, handlers, and extraction protocols. Experts confirmed the encryption matched CIA-grade technology from the Cold War. These were not prison communications but intelligence operations. Further evidence included surveillance blueprints detailing monitoring capabilities far exceeding prisoner oversight. Logs recorded movements of government officials and unidentified visitors, tracked without their knowledge. The material left no doubt. Alcatraz had served as a clandestine listening post and control center, designed for surveillance that reached into the highest levels of government and military operations. References to CIA, NSA, and military intelligence confirmed multiple agencies' involvement. No official record acknowledged this dual purpose. Hidden beneath the symbol of American justice, the prison's isolation, security, and proximity to strategic sites had made it the perfect cover for espionage and operation buried in silence for decades. The infamous 1962 escape attempt, long seen as a desperate gamble by 3 inmates, began to look far more complex in light of the new discoveries. For decades, the official story told of Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers fashioning dummy heads, carving through concrete, and vanishing into the icy waters of San Francisco Bay on a makeshift raft. But evidence from the hidden chambers suggested another possibility. Among the artifacts was a weathered letter preserved in an envelope, allegedly written years later by John Anglin. Its contents contradicted the accepted narrative. According to the letter, the escape was not an act but a calculated operation involving secret routes unknown to staff and protocols far beyond what prisoners could devise. Anglin described predetermined routes and established protocols, language that implied planning tied to covert infrastructure rather than improvised digging. The letter suggested that the men had not risked the bay's treacherous currents but had instead followed concealed passages designed for purposes unrelated to housing inmates. The details aligned disturbingly well with the newly uncovered tunnel systems. The dimensions, direction, and engineering of the documented escape route matched those of the hidden corridors. The sophistication of the construction was far beyond what 3 prisoners with stolen tools could have achieved. This raised a chilling question. What if the escape had been part of a larger operation? The timing during the height of Cold War tensions, combined with classified documents found in the chamber, pointed toward intelligence involvement. Investigators began to consider whether the men had been extracted rather than escaped. If true, the event commonly celebrated as a symbol of ingenuity was actually a cover for a secret mission. The escapees may have been operatives or pawns in an intelligence scheme hidden beneath decades of myth. The implications were staggering. Alcatraz might not have been only a prison but also a staging ground for clandestine operations. If so, the 1962 escape was not an isolated incident, but part of a broader system of activities erased from public record, concealed behind the island's reputation for inescapable walls and ruthless security. Behind the far wall of the chamber, hidden beneath a panel warped by decades of salt air and dampness, investigators uncovered something extraordinary. What had once been dismissed as a structural irregularity turned out to be a carefully concealed partition. When the panel was finally removed, the room fell into silence. Inside were 5 skeletal remains, arranged upright and deliberately positioned, their hands clasped as though in formal alignment. Even more striking, their uniforms were remarkably preserved, pristine despite the passage of time. Yet these individuals were not Alcatraz inmates, nor prison guards, nor officials connected with the penitentiary system. The insignia sewn into their clothing bore no resemblance to any known military, intelligence, or correctional agency. Their presence raised questions that conventional history could not answer. Near the remains lay a collection of sealed containers, scattered across the chamber floor. Inside, investigators found vacuum-sealed biological samples, each tagged with coded identifiers too complex to decipher on sight. Though their meaning remained obscure, the precision of their labeling suggested a purpose far beyond routine prison activity. As the team studied the scene, the weight of the discovery grew. The placement of the remains, the unknown uniforms, and the cryptic containers pointed to something deliberately orchestrated, preserved in secrecy for decades. This was no ordinary find. It suggested that Alcatraz had once been used for operations unrelated to incarceration, activities hidden carefully within the island's foundations. Whispers spread quickly among the experts present. They finally found them. The phrase, repeated in post-analysis reports, underscored the gravity of the moment. Who were these individuals? Why had they been placed here, beneath one of the most heavily guarded sites in the country? The investigation that followed only deepened the mystery. DNA testing and archival research continued, but definitive answers remained out of reach. What had been revealed was more than a secret chamber with skeletal remains. It was evidence of a story buried within the very stone of Alcatraz, one that challenged its long-accepted identity as merely a prison and suggested a role in operations far more complex than anyone had been told. Many believed the mystery of Alcatraz ended when the prison closed in 1963. Yet, in reality, that was only the beginning. While the FBI concluded that the escapees drowned in the icy waters surrounding the island, the explanation never fully satisfied everyone. The case became a cornerstone for the National Park Service's storytelling, but questions kept resurfacing almost immediately. Relatives of John and Clarence Anglin shared accounts that challenged the official version. Holiday cards, allegedly signed by the brothers, appeared in family mailboxes. Their mother reportedly received fresh flowers every Mother's Day, year after year, without a note or sender's name. When she passed in 1973, witnesses said two tall men, disguised in heavy makeup, quietly attended her funeral. To those who knew the family best, the resemblance was unmistakable. Could they have truly succeeded where so many believed failure was inevitable? The theories grew stronger as time went on. Rumors began circulating of hidden passages, unused service shafts, and sealed chambers that never appeared in official records. Maintenance staff spoke of blueprints that revealed areas later walled off, and others recalled locked doors that seemed to lead nowhere. Some stories suggested that certain sections of the prison had been built over, concealing access points and tunnels no one discussed openly. Even visitors claimed unusual experiences, footsteps echoing in closed-off areas, doors creaking in sections long abandoned. Some dismissed these accounts as the natural sounds of old buildings settling. Others wondered if they hinted at something deeper, something embedded in the very structure of the island. What made Alcatraz compelling wasn't just its role as a federal penitentiary, but the sense that it contained multiple layers, both above and below, designed for more than confinement. With every rumor, the focus shifted. The real question became not only whether the escapees survived, but also whether Alcatraz itself was holding secrets that were never meant to be uncovered. Alcatraz was never only a prison. It was never simply a place where notorious inmates served their time. What the world had long believed about this island was only part of the story. Its isolation in the middle of San Francisco Bay, its reputation for impenetrability, and its layered history made it the perfect cover. Yet what took place within its walls went far beyond incarceration. The island functioned as a strategic hub, serving purposes that remained carefully concealed from the public eye. The recently uncovered tunnel revealed just how deep those purposes ran. This was not a crude escape route scratched out by desperate inmates. Its construction told a different story. The walls, built with materials absent from known prison records, were engineered to suppress sound and vibration. Every detail suggested permanence, a design meant to survive both scrutiny and time itself. As investigators analyzed the site, a larger picture began to emerge. The tunnel appeared less like a passageway and more like a containment chamber. Layer by layer, evidence indicated that Alcatraz had been part of a broader network, an installation tied to surveillance, intelligence gathering, and classified projects. Declassified fragments hinted at psychological studies and the quiet holding of individuals or objects never meant to be acknowledged. What became most striking was not the physical silence of the tunnel, but the silence of history surrounding it. This absence was not the result of records lost to time. It was a deliberate silence, one sustained by those who understood the risks of revealing what had been hidden there. With this discovery, the narrative of Alcatraz shifted. It was no longer only a prison built to contain people. It appeared to have been part of a system constructed to contain information, technologies, and perhaps even operations that extended far beyond the island's rocky shores. Experts began tracing connections across agencies and governments, recognizing patterns that suggested a web of activity far greater than a single penitentiary. The revelations reframed the island's legacy. For decades, Alcatraz had stood as a symbol of control and confinement. Now it was becoming clear that control itself had been the purpose, not only over prisoners but over knowledge too sensitive to reach the public. The silence that had surrounded Alcatraz was not neglect. It was designed, and the discoveries within its weathered stone walls suggested that what was kept there was never meant to be released. The deeper investigators looked, the clearer it became. The island's past was not only about inmates and guards. It carried traces of earlier operations, hidden beneath decades of accepted narrative. The question was no longer just about how the prison functioned, but why its foundations contained structures built years before its story was supposed to begin. If you enjoyed today's video, please give it a like and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your support means a lot to us. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for being with us. Leave a comment, like to show your support, and remember to hit that subscribe button for more exciting videos. See you next time.